The alley reeked of despair, a stench of damp concrete, and forgotten dreams where hope went to die. Marcus Kane, a black man forged in the crucible of war, stood frozen as his sister's scream tore through the twilight, a sound that would haunt him forever. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Aisha, his younger sister, had begged him to meet her at the community center where she volunteered, her voice bubbling with pride over her new outreach program for kids. Marcus, just back from a covert Delta Force mission in a war zone he couldn't name, had agreed, craving the warmth of family after months of bloodshed. But the city had other plans. As they walked home, laughing about old times, a police cruiser screeched to a halt beside them. Officer Daniel Holt, a man whose badge gleamed brighter than his conscience, stepped out, his eyes narrowing at Marcus's broad shoulders and Aisha's defiant stare. "Hands where I can see him," Holt barked, his voice dripping with suspicion. Marcus complied, his movements slow and deliberate, but Aisha, ever the firebrand, questioned why they were being stopped. "We're just walking home," she said, her tone sharp but steady. Holt's lip curled. To him, their black skin was a crime scene waiting to happen. The argument escalated in seconds. Aisha's raised voice, her refusal to back down, set Holt on edge. Marcus saw the officer's hand twitch toward his holster and stepped forward, instincts honed from years of combat screaming danger. "Officer, let's stay calm," he said, his voice low, authoritative. But Holt wasn't listening. His fear, his prejudice, his power, they all collided in a single, catastrophic moment. He drew his gun and fired. Aisha crumpled, a red stain blooming across her chest. Marcus's world shattered. He dropped to his knees beside her, pressing his hands against the wound, blood seeping through his fingers. "Stay with me, Aisha," he whispered, his voice breaking. Her eyes, wide with shock, met his, and she gasped. "Marcus, don't let him." Her words faded as her body went limp. Holt stood frozen, the gun still in his hand, his face a mask of panic. She was reaching for something, he stammered, but Marcus knew the truth. Aisha had no weapon, only her courage. Rage surged through him, a tidal wave threatening to drown his restraint. But Marcus Kane wasn't just a brother, was a Delta Force commander trained to channel fury into precision. He rose, his 6'4" frame towering over Holt, who took a step back, suddenly aware of the predator he'd unleashed. "You shot my sister," Marcus said, each word blade. Holt's radio crackled, calling for backup, but Marcus's focus was singular. He memorized every detail: Holt's badge number, the sweat on his brow, the tremor in his grip. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Sirens wailed in the distance as Marcus knelt again, cradling Aisha. Paramedics would arrive soon, but every second felt like an eternity. He whispered promises to her unconscious, form promises of justice, of vengeance, of a world where she could walk home without fear. The alley, now swarming with flashing lights, became a stage for a war that was just beginning. As the paramedics rushed Aisha to the hospital, Marcus's phone buzzed. It was his old Delta Force contact, Captain Reyes. "Heard what happened," Reyes said, his voice grim. "Holt's got a history. IA's got complaints stacked against him: racial profiling, excessive force. Never sticks." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It'll stick this time," he vowed. The hospital was a blur of sterile white walls and frantic voices. Aisha was in surgery, her life hanging by a thread. Marcus sat in the waiting room, his tactical mind already mapping out his next move. Holt wasn't just a cop. He was a symptom of a system that saw black lives as disposable. Marcus had fought enemies across the globe, but this fight was personal. He'd dismantle Holt's world, piece by piece, not with bullets but with truth. He dug into Holt's past, calling in favors from old military contacts. By dawn, he had a dossier: Holt's disciplinary record, witness testimonies buried by the department, and a pattern of targeting black and brown communities. But Marcus needed more evidence that would hold up in court, not just in the court of public opinion. He reached out to Aisha's friends at the community center, who'd seen Holt's cruiser circling their events before. They were scared but willing to talk, their anger mirroring his own. The city was a powder keg. News of Aisha's shooting spread, sparking protests outside the precinct. Marcus watched from a distance, his heart torn between joining the march and staying focused on his mission. He wasn't a protester, he was a soldier. And soldiers didn't just mourn, they struck back. Days passed, and Aisha remained in a coma. Marcus visited her daily, holding her hand, whispering apologies for failing to protect her. Each visit fueled his resolve. He tracked Holt, who'd been placed on administrative leave but was still strutting around, confident his badge would shield him. Marcus followed him to a dive bar, watching as Holt laughed with other off-duty cops, oblivious to the storm brewing. Then came a break. One of Aisha's friends, a tech-savvy activist named Jamal, hacked into a street camera near the alley. The footage was grainy but damning. Holt firing without provocation, Aisha's hands empty and raised. Marcus's blood boiled, but he stayed calm. This was the key piece of evidence the department couldn't bury. He met with a lawyer, Sarah Coleman, known for taking on police brutality cases. She was fierce, her eyes blazing with the same hunger for justice Marcus felt. "This footage changes everything," she said, reviewing the clip. "But Holt's got friends in high places. We need to be strategic." Marcus nodded. Strategy was his domain. He'd spent years dismantling terrorist networks. A corrupt cop was just another target. Together, they built a case, gathering witness statements and medical reports. Marcus's military precision guided their moves, but his heart drove him forward. Every step was for Aisha, for the kids she mentored, for every black life diminished by a system that valued power over humanity. As the case gained traction, the city's unrest grew. Protests swelled, and Holt's name became a rallying cry. Marcus stayed in the shadows, orchestrating leaks to the press, ensuring the truth reached the public. But Holt wasn't idle. Word reached Marcus that the officer was trying to smear Aisha's name, painting her as a threat to justify his actions. It was a desperate move, one that only deepened Marcus's resolve. One night, as Marcus left the hospital, he found a note tucked under his car's wiper. "Back off, or you're next." He crushed the paper in his fist, a grim smile crossing his face. Holt had no idea who he was dealing with. Marcus Kane wasn't just a grieving brother, was a force of nature, and he was coming. The city pulsed with rage, its streets alive with chants for justice. But Marcus Kane moved through the chaos like a ghost, his focus unbreakable. Holt's threat only sharpened his edge, a reminder that this fight was personal and he was winning. Sarah Coleman pushed the case forward, filing a civil suit against Holt and the department. The footage from the alley was their trump card, but Marcus knew it wasn't enough. The system protected its own, and Holt's connections ran deep. Marcus needed to hit harder to expose the rot at the core of the precinct. He tapped into his Delta Force network, pulling strings to access internal police communications. What he found was a gold mine, emails between Holt and a sergeant, discussing how to handle Aisha's case, hinting at evidence tampering. Marcus leaked the emails anonymously to a local journalist, a move that sent shockwaves through the city. The headlines screamed corruption, and the precinct scrambled to contain the fallout. Holt's swagger faltered. He was no longer untouchable. But Marcus wasn't done. He shadowed Holt, watching his every move, waiting for a slip. One night, he caught the officer meeting a shady figure in a parking lot, a known fixer for dirty cops. Marcus recorded the exchange, capturing Holt handing over a flash drive. Whatever was on it, Marcus would find out. Meanwhile, Aisha's condition stabilized, but she remained in a coma. Marcus sat by her bedside, his heart heavy, but his resolve ironclad. "I'm fighting for you," he whispered, brushing her hand. Her friends at the community center rallied, organizing vigils and sharing stories of her kindness, her strength. Aisha wasn't just a victim, she was a symbol, a spark for change. The trial loomed, and Sarah prepped Marcus for the stand. "They'll try to paint you as a threat," she warned. "Your military background feel twisted." Marcus nodded. He'd faced worse than courtroom tactics. When the day came, he walked into the courthouse, his head high, Aisha's memory fueling every step. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Holt sat at the defense table, his eyes avoiding Marcus's. Sarah presented the footage, the emails, the witness testimonies. The prosecution tried to discredit Marcus, calling him a trained killer who intimidated Holt. But Marcus's calm, measured responses disarmed them. He spoke of Aisha's dreams, her work with kids, her unwavering spirit. The jury listened, their faces softening. Marcus wasn't just a soldier. He was a brother fighting for his family. Outside, the protests grew louder, a chorus of voices demanding accountability. The city was a tinderbox, and Marcus's case was the match. Then came a breakthrough. The flash drive Holt had handed off contained body cam footage from another officer, showing Holt planting a knife near Aisha after the shooting. It was the final nail in his coffin. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. When a verdict came guilty on all charges, the courtroom erupted. Holt's face crumpled, his badge no longer a shield. Marcus felt no joy, only a hollow relief. Justice for Aisha was a step, but the war against the system raged on. As Holt was led away in cuffs, Marcus stepped outside, greeted by a sea of supporters. They chanted Aisha's name, holding signs with her face. For the first time in weeks, Marcus allowed himself a moment of hope. He dismantled Holt's world, but this was bigger than one man. It was about every life lost, every voice silenced. Aisha woke a month later, her eyes weak but fierce. Marcus was there, holding her hand as she whispered, "You did it." He shook his head. "We did it." Her recovery was slow, but her spirit was unbroken. Together, they turned her outreach program into a movement, training kids to know their rights, to stand tall against injustice. Marcus never returned to Delta Force. His battlefield was here, in the streets where his sister nearly died, where Black lives were still at stake. He'd fought for his country, but now he fought for his people, armed not with a gun but with truth, courage, and a love that no bullet could kill. The city changed, slowly. Holt's convictions sparked reforms, body cam mandates, and community oversight. But Marcus knew the fight wasn't over. Every day, he walked the streets, Aisha by his side, their bond a testament to resilience. The alley where it all began was no longer a place of despair. A mural rose on its walls, Aisha's face smiling down, a wooden sign below it reading, "Justice bleeds in silence." It was a reminder, a promise, a call to keep fighting for her, for them, for all. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.